In a wild new interview, political commentator Tucker Carlson questions Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, about the strange death of a former employee. But did he just accuse him of murder? Carlson says no. Altman seems to say yes. We're going into the backstory, the competing narratives, competing conclusions of this employee's death to get to the bottom of what on earth is going on here. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Did Tucker Carlson just accuse Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, of murder? I mean, according to Altman, the answer seems to be yes. Here's what happened, okay? I'm scrolling through X, and I see this clip. It's from an almost hour-long interview that the political commentator did with the tech innovator. And this over 7-minute bite, this 7-minute conversation is arguably one of the most awkward and tense exchanges I have seen in quite some time. And it concerns the death of former OpenAI employee, 26-year-old Suchir Balaji, back on November 26, 2024. Now, to be clear, this is not something I even knew about, not something I followed, but I will tell you what, after I heard this interview, I immediately told my team, you know what, maybe we should do a deep dive on this after what happened here. And that is exactly what we are going to do right now. We are trying to understand more about the investigation regarding Suchir's death, and I'm going to bring on a former FBI agent a little bit later on to get his take on what exactly is going on here. Now, to be clear, neither Sam Altman nor anybody at OpenAI has ever been criminally charged, prosecuted, investigated for the death of Suchir. We will explain why. But I just want to make that very, very clear. But let's actually start with this interview, and then we'll work our way back. Unfortunately, due to copyright restrictions, we can't play you Carlson's interview with Altman. What I can do is read you back key portions of the transcript. I will also tell you, due to YouTube guidelines, we have to be very careful regarding some of this subject matter. Just to say, is it possible that Suchir was not, in fact, murdered, but rather died as a result of his own doing? Let's say it like this. I think you could put two and two together. We just don't want to get flagged because this is an important story. So let's talk to the interview. Carlson starts and says, you've had complaints from one programmer who said you guys were basically stealing people's stuff and not paying them, and then he wound up murdered. What was that? Altman responds, also a great tragedy. He committed, you can fill in the blank, basically saying he died from a gunshot wound by his own hand. Carlson then asks, do you really think he did that? Altman responded, I really do. This was like a friend of mine. This is like a guy that is not a close friend, but this is someone who worked at OpenAI for a very long time. I was really shaken by this tragedy. I spent a lot of time trying to, read everything I could, as I'm sure you and others did too, about what happened. And Altman stresses again that to him, it looks like Suchir was not killed. Now, Carlson presses him on why he thinks that, to which Altman responds, it was a gun he had purchased. This is like gruesome to talk about, but I read the whole medical report. Does it not look like one to you? And Carlson responds, no, he was definitely murdered, I think. There were signs of a struggle, of course. The surveillance camera, the wires had been cut. He had just ordered takeout food, came back from vacation with his friends on Catalina Island. No indication at all that he was, fill in the blank. No note, no behavior. He had just spoken to a family member on the phone, and then he's found dead with blood in multiple rooms, so that's impossible. Seems really obvious he was murdered. And then this is where the interview takes this wild, uncomfortable turn. Carlson says, have you talked to the authorities about it? And Altman responds, I have not talked to the authorities about it. Carlson responds, and his mother claims he was murdered on your orders. Altman responds, do you believe that? Carlson says, I'm asking. And Altman responds, you just said it, so do you believe that? Carlson says, I think that it's worth looking into. And if a guy comes out and accuses your company of committing crimes, I have no idea if that's true or not, of course, and then is found killed and there are signs of a struggle, I don't think it's worth dismissing it. And Carlson goes on to say, I think if he was your friend, I would think you want to speak to his mom. Altman says, I did offer, she didn't want to. Carlson says, so do you feel that, when people look at that and they're like, it's possible that happened, do you feel that that reflects the worries they have about what's happening here? And he's referring, of course, to OpenAI and people's concerns about it. And Altman jumps in and says, I haven't done too many interviews where I've been accused of And Carlson jumps in and says, oh, I'm not accusing you at all. I'm just saying his mother says that. I don't think a fair reading of the evidence suggests, again, fill in the blank. I just don't see that at all. And I also don't understand why the authorities, when there's signs of a struggle and blood in 2 rooms, I don't understand how the authorities could just kind of dismiss that. I think it's weird. Altman responds, you understand how this sounds like an accusation? And Carlson responds, of course. And I mean, let me just be clear once again, not accusing you of any wrongdoing, but I think it's worth finding out what happened. And I don't understand why the city of San Francisco has refused to investigate it beyond just calling it and Altman responds, I mean, I think they looked into it a couple of times, more than once, as I understand it. I saw that, and I will totally say when I first heard about this, it sounded very suspicious to me. Carlson says, yes. Altman, and I know you had been involved. And Carlson says, well, his mother asked about the case, and I know, I don't know anything about it. It's not my world. And Altman says, she just reached out cold? Carlson responds, she reached out cold. And I spoke to her at great length, and it scared the crap out of me. The kid was clearly killed by somebody. That was my conclusion, objectively, with no skin in the game. Altman responds, and after reading the latest report, Carlson says, yes. Like, look, I immediately called a member of Congress from California, Ro Khanna, and said, this is crazy. You got to look into this. And nothing ever happened. And I'm like, what is that? Altman responds, again, I feel strange and sad debating this, and you are a little bit accusing me, but this was like a wonderful person and a family that is clearly struggling, yes, and I think you can totally take the point that you're just trying to get to the truth of what happened, and I respect that, but I think his memory and his family deserve to be treated with a level of respect and grief that I don't quite feel here. And Carlson strongly pushes back and says, I'm asking at the behest of his family, so I'm definitely showing them respect. I'm not accusing you of any involvement in this at all. And then later Altman says, again, when it first happened, he thought it sounded weird, but later changed his mind based on more details that came out. Carlson pushes back, emphasizes again the alleged blood in 2 rooms, apparently a wig in the room that wasn't Suchir's, no note, he ordered takeout food. But Altman counters, this is where it gets into, I think, a little bit painful, just not the level of respect I'd hope to show. People do, fill in the blank without notes. A lot like that happens. People definitely order food. They before they, do something. Again, you can watch this whole interview. It is just something. It is very, very wild. It's uncomfortable. Again, it made me want to do a story on it. But what is this all about, right? What is Carlson referring to? So let's talk about it. Now, as I keep saying, I really wanted to bring this episode to you, and one of the reasons that we can do this is because of the incredible support that we get from our sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. This is a firm with over 1,000 attorneys. You know why they're so big? Because they win a lot. They have recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. Think about that. In the past few months, you have a client in Florida who received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. Out in Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That is 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. And look, even if you think your case isn't worth millions of dollars, why not just start a claim and fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so simple. You can start a claim from your phone in just 8 clicks. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code on screen. So Suchir Balaji was found dead in his San Francisco apartment. Now, the San Francisco police and the Office of the Medical Examiner concluded that Suchir died by his own hand, that there was, quote, no foul play was found during the initial investigation. And that is consistent with the report. So what does that say? Well, it says cause of death, gunshot wound to the head. Quote, Balaji was found unresponsive inside his locked apartment unit, deadbolt engaged, with an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head. Entry to the unit was made by the building manager, San Francisco Fire Department paramedics, and San Francisco Police Department officers to perform a wellness check. San Francisco Fire Department paramedics pronounced death at 13:20 hours. Now, here are the additional investigative observations in this report. Quote, Balaji's 4th floor apartment is accessed through the front door. There are no other entry points to the unit. The apartment windows are stories above the shared courtyard and street and are equipped with devices that restrict the window opening to approximately 4 inches. There was no evidence of forced entry to the unit or disturbance within the unit. A desktop computer was observed on scene. Recent searches for brain anatomy included total gray matter volume and white matter. Now this is interesting. He was pronounced dead November 26, but the report says Battaglia last communicated with his mother via text message on Friday, November 22, 2024. At that time, he did not voice any complaints or concerns. And according to the report, his mother had said that he had experienced significant stress recently and that he had quit his job and was actively seeking new employment, but she also stated that to her knowledge, he had never expressed that he would do something like this. So the report continues, the following items were secured at the scene. 1 Glock pistol containing 4 live rounds in the magazine and 1 spent casing located in the chamber, and 1 gunshot residue kit and 1 handbag kit. The pistol was purchased and registered by Battaglia on January 4th, 2024. Now, as far as the body, the report states that Battaglia was found lying supine on the floor of the bathroom. The pistol was found underneath his right thigh. Also, when the examination was done, quote, the front and back of the hands show no traumatic injuries. So there doesn't appear to be anything out of order. When you look at this report, there was no trauma. All appears to be normal, other than, of course, the gunshot wound. But the report says that the body is of a well-developed, well-nourished adult man. There's nothing abnormal going on here. And then you go to the gunshot wound, where it says, quote, on the glabella of the forehead, centered approximately 13 centimeters below the top of the head and 0.5 centimeters right of the anterior midline, is the entrance gunshot wound, and the wound track travels from the decedent's front to back and downward. The report also indicates that he had a blood alcohol concentration of 0.178%. That is twice the legal limit. And apparently there was also the presence of drugs in his system, including the depressant GHB. So in other words, right, when you look at this report, it seems to support Altman's conclusion from the interview. Here's the problem. Forbes and the San Francisco Examiner, they report that Suchir's parents believe he was murdered, that he was killed by OpenAI because of him speaking out against the company, calling for a full investigation, questioning the medical examiner's report. More specifically, Suchir's parents, Purnima Ramarao and her husband Balaji Ramamurthy, commissioned a second autopsy by Dr. Joseph Cohen, and Purnima told the San Francisco Examiner that the trajectory of the bullet actually doesn't match up with Suchir doing this to himself, that it took a diagonal path from his forehead through the base of his head and didn't make contact with his brain, right? So more of like an execution style. The second autopsy, this autopsy that was apparently commissioned by Suchir's family, also found a potential injury to his head. Evidence of assault is what the allegation is. Now, it doesn't appear, though, that that report was provided to the media. His mother also apparently commissioned her own crime scene investigation of her son's apartment with investigator Dr. Dinesh Rao. Dr. Rao saying in his report, the crime scene examination is inadequate and incomplete and unscientific. Something to note here, and this is based on the reporting, what Carlson references, right, the surveillance camera wires being cut, the blood in the multiple rooms, these allegations apparently haven't been substantiated in official reports, but I want to talk about what the family's independent crime scene investigation determined, okay? So this is based on reporting from the Daily Mail regarding apparent photos of this scene. Photos that allegedly show blood pooled around the bathroom door where Suchir's head was laying, and inside the bathroom there were blood droplets apparently on the tiles, the cabinet handle, and on the other side of the room, with Rao, Dr. Rao, concluding that it looks like some blood fell from Suchir as he was sitting, maybe even crawling, and some while he was standing. And there's also a possibility, according to Dr. Rao, that Suchir could have coughed up blood. Now, to be clear, the Daily Mail also reports that some of the blood allegedly found splattered around the bathroom was not exactly near Suchir's body. And there was also citing how a wireless earbud was found on the floor near his bedroom with bloodstains on it, and the other earbud reportedly being found by the bathroom door in a deposit of dried blood. So this all seems to be kind of backing up what Carlson was talking about. Also referencing what Carlson said in his interview, the Daily Mail reports that in the bloodstains were synthetic hairs from a wig, or possibly from a wig, that the apartment was allegedly ransacked as if someone was searching for something. and it was reportedly particularly messy near Suchir's body, citing how in the bathroom a trash bin was knocked over. His father reportedly said that his son's apartment, yes, it was messy, but it was never in that much disarray. Dr. Rao writes in his report, the disturbed surroundings supports possibility of fights, resistance, which need to be corroborated with other forensic evidence. And Dr. Rao cited that Suchir most likely bled for 15 to 30 minutes and wrote that the scattered scenes were, quote, more likely seen in homicidal death scenes. Now, also in reference to the Carlson interview, the Daily Mail reports that a half-eaten meal in this plastic tray was found on a desk in the apartment. There was a fork, there was a restaurant receipt. And yes, Suchir apparently did come back from a week-long trip to the Catalina Islands for a week with friends. His father saying that his son was happy, though, and how he had fun on this trip. I will say, though, the Daily Mail reports that one of his friends on this trip said that while not unusual for Suchir, he did seem to be thinking deeply on the trip. He even walked by himself at one point, but this friend emphasized how Suchir was in a good mood. His father saying in their last phone conversation on the 22nd, when asked if he wanted to go to an exhibit with him a few months later, Suchir apparently responded, sure, let's see, I'll think about it. And when he asked his son if he was going to visit, Suchir apparently said, not immediately. So his parents don't believe there was any indication that Suchir would do something, and they believe that foul play is afoot, which begs the question, why? Right? Hypothetically, allegedly, why would OpenAI want Suchir Balaji dead? Well, Suchir reportedly spoke to the New York Times a month before he died, and this is about 2 months after he left the company. He was reportedly very vocal in how OpenAI was allegedly illegally using copyrighted material to modify the AI model, the chatbots, and that this was going to hurt the owners of these copyrighted works, telling the Times this is not a sustainable model for the internet ecosystem as a whole. If you believe what I believe, you have to just leave the company. And yes, he quit the company, posted an essay about this on his personal website. And Suchir was also named in a court filing regarding, by the way, the New York Times lawsuit against OpenAI. They were suing them for copyright infringement, basically saying the platform was misappropriating their articles to train their chatbots. And now these chatbots are directly competing with the Times when it comes to people getting their information, getting their news. So OpenAI, by the way, denies these allegations. But going back to this court filing, it states, quote, as a good faith compromise, OpenAI has agreed to search the custodial files of former employee Suchir Balaji to identify documents in his custodial file, if any, related to purported copyright concerns he has recently raised following his employment at OpenAI. Suchir's mom told the Daily Mail that her son also was no fan of Sam Altman. Quote, he's a very weird person. Suchir hated him. That much I can tell you. All his friends say he was very vocal against Sam Altman. Now, it is not just Suchir's parents who question the official findings. There have been others who believe that there is more to this young man's death. Back in January, California Representative Ro Khanna posted on X regarding Suchir's mother's claims, quote, I am heartbroken by your loss. Given your very serious concerns about foul play, I do believe that there should be a full and transparent investigation into the death by the FBI or appropriate agency. Elon Musk, who is, as you know, apparently no fan of Sam Altman, a big rival to him. The two tech giants have been feuding for a while. He posted just the other day on X in response to Carlson's interview with Sam Altman, supposedly, by the way, has to do with OpenAI, Altman's refusal to let Musk buy them out, a lot of bad blood. Anyway, Musk just posted regarding Suchir, he was murdered. That's what he posted on X. According to Forbes, Suchir's mother has indicated that this investigation is still going on, that she has been trying to raise money for it, even pushing for a 3D crime reconstruction of the apartment. And in response to Altman's interview with Carlson, she posted on X, quote, this is the response for Tucker Carlson's interview with Sam Altman. This is what people are saying. These many people responded immediately. How does this sound to you all? I will make a podcast and share very soon. This is the reaction against Altman by the public. This response to your question, who else believes Sam killed Suchir? And she lists out a number of X posts from users questioning Sam Altman. So let me bring in my own expert. We have Colin L. Schmidt, retired FBI agent, president, CEO of Kronos Investigations. Thank you so much for taking the time. Let me just be clear about something. And I said it before, I'll say it again. Sam Altman, neither Sam Altman, nobody in OpenAI has ever been criminally charged or investigated or prosecuted or implicated in the death of Suchir. But honestly, when we look at this interview, I wanted to start right there. What was your opinion of this interview, aside from the fact that it was, again, one of the most awkward, tense interactions I've seen in recent memory?
Well, I did watch the interview, and it appeared that in typical Tucker fashion manner, he was kind of doing the kind of the gotcha moment, and basically put him on the defensive. And then he was like, he's kind of looking at Tucker like, where did this come from? So Tucker Carlson, obviously that's his style, to get clickbait, to get people to watch his videos. However, there is a lot of unanswered questions surrounding this incident. And frankly, there does need to be more transparency, in my opinion, so the family can get some closure on what happened to their son.
Do you feel that there are discrepancies between the private crime scene investigation report, right, this private report that was commissioned by the family, and the San Francisco medical examiner's report? Or is it possible two things could be true at the same time?
Well, generally speaking, you can't prove a negative, number one. Number two, without seeing the video and the photographs of the actual scene, and I don't want to call it a crime scene because it's in dispute on what happened there. Basically, those photographs are what really is going to dictate, for example, a prosecution. And there's allegations that there was a struggle, that the place was quote unquote ransacked. What does that mean? Without looking at the actual photographs of the scene, then it's hard to make a conclusion on or reconcile the two reports.
Now, we reported what the Daily Mail said about a lot of these photos, right? Blood in different locations, an apartment in disarray, the leftover food. Does this look like foul play, or do you go back to what Sam Altman said in the interview, that unfortunately, in certain situations, there could be somebody who orders food. There could be a situation where, it might appear that someone was killed when they really weren't. There could be a situation, I'm just speculating here, where if someone is shot, it may not go exactly as that person had intended. Do you think there's foul play based on what the reporting indicates so far?
Well, there's quite a few unanswered questions. So just to kind of, there's an allegation, the official report of what happened, and then what the family's saying. And then, frankly, Sam Altman should not have even commented on this, because because he could have said, well, it's still up for dispute. But bottom line is, if based upon what the official report said, there should have been some sort of communication that this person had with the world, is generally what you're going to see, the note, so to speak. And then there should have been some lead up, because generally people who do these kind of things are going to show some sort of leakage or some sort of actions that indicate that they have a mindset of what they're going to do. And then the other thing, with all the blood in all these other places, generally speaking, if somebody actually did what they said they did, you're going to have one spot where it happens, and it's not going to be all over the place.
Is it unusual to question an official medical examiner's office report? I mean, in other words,
not at all.
It happens a lot, and there's a justification to question it, and sometimes they get it wrong?
Well, yeah, because if there's a rush to get a conclusion out, and law enforcement, they're fully human beings, and sometimes they make mistakes, or there was some sort of reason why they pushed to make the conclusion. And frankly, relying on ME's report, that's only one piece of the puzzle. There's lots of other things that go into a investigation. It's not just the medical examiner, it's the crime scene or the scene photos, it's the blood alcohol, it's the interview of the people that are around him, It's the investigation of the firearm. It's you're looking at whether the placement of the firearm. All kinds of things go into it. So the ME report is only one piece of the puzzle.
Just your thoughts on this, according to the Daily Mail. So Sushir's parents believe he was attacked from behind while he was listening to music. That's why you have the earbuds, that he was brushing his teeth when this happened, fought back, and that he was executed, that he was shot in the head while on his knees or sitting down. Just your thoughts on that.
Well, once again, I'd have to look at the ME report, and there's basically, if they're saying he was shot with on his knees, there's going to be a trajectory analysis.
And just real quick, they say it was a diagonal angle. The ME's report basically says it was, you know, front to back through the forehead. My understanding.
Well, and once again, I think you've seen those poles or those red rods when they do the analysis, because the trajectory is not something that you can, fake or change. It is what it is, because the skull is not going to change. So basically, the trajectory would be probably the most important thing to identify and establish. And based upon the ME, it sounds like they're saying it would be an appropriate trajectory, but the family's saying it was a diagonal or 45-degree trajectory. Now, if it indeed was, then opens up a whole bunch of questions, because if he indeed did what the ME report said he did, you just simply can't do that. That's kind of like, calling it something when somebody shoots themselves in the back of the head. It's just not possible.
And I'm a little torn on something. How difficult would it be to murder someone and stage the scene? Because the other way of looking at it is, if this was a professional hit of some kind, right? Why leave it in a condition where there are questions? Why leave it in a condition where the apartment does appear to be ransacked, when you do have potential forensic material in different areas, when you have the food? That becomes a question too, right? If this really was a hit, why leave it in a condition where it may look like a hit?
Well,
allegedly, by the way.
Because part of it is the concept of a professional hit. I mean, that's only in the movies. There really isn't that many professional so-called hitmen out there. If it truly was somebody else did this, they are going to be stressed out. They probably have not done this before. If they have, it's been a very few, and they made mistakes. And that's just a simple, if it indeed was foul play. So it really comes down to the analysis of that skull, and then that would be where you would expand your investigation.
The Emory report says you can only get through the front door, again, the gunshot wound to the head, and no forced entry. If that is true, what does that tell you?
Well, I'm kind of perplexed, because generally they don't put information about the state of the building. They only talk about the body. So if there was indeed a deadbolt thrown, yes, that would indicate that there was nobody that participated in this. It was just one person, the decedent. But how do we know if the deadbolt was thrown? And then if it was thrown, are there pictures of law enforcement kicking the door in and blowing that deadbolt off the wall? And I don't know if there is. So there's lots of follow-up questions that has been frankly created by the Tucker Carlson interview, and I anticipate there's going to be some more investigation on this case.
What role could the FBI play here?
Well, they could be brought in for one cell phone. We always talk about cell phones. Do some analysis on his phone. Whatever gaps that the San Francisco police may have, they could be coming in for DNA analysis to assist with that. They could also be brought in to follow up leads, that are not in the San Francisco area. And they could also be brought in just to kind of consult, as like when I was on the job, I was a criminal profiler, to give them kind of ideas on who might have participated in this act.
And you hear the family talking about maybe commissioning a 3D scan of the apartment. What value would that serve?
I think that if they have the scene photos, then they can add that to the 3D, and then they can kind of show a picture or paint a picture for the media, so they can get more support from the public to support reopening this investigation.
Does the timing bother you? I mentioned it before, right? What would be the motive for him to be killed is the idea that, you know, he was providing information about the company that was not favorable, accusing them of essentially serious copyright infringement, and then shortly after, you know, he dies. Does that bother you?
Well, is it possible? There's possible and probable. It's not probable that Sam Altman would get involved in something like this. He seems to be a rational human being. But when you're speaking of potentially billions and billions and billions of dollars, that may make people do, you know, things that are not rational. So yes, the timing is one of the big circumstances when you look at a crime, is what was happening around the time of the act. So to determine if there was motive.
And according to the Daily Mail, going back to this gun that he had apparently purchased, it was found near his body. There was a box of 9mm ammunition found in the closet, 6 rounds. I'll say were missing, although 1 was found in the gun case, 4 were found somewhere else, and then there was 1 that was apparently unaccounted for. Thoughts on that?
Well, if he did indeed purchase the gun and he has no experience or a history with owning firearms, that would fall in line with what the official explanation is, because there's no other reason for him to purchase that gun. But once again, they have to look at that, investigate that to determine if it was indeed him, or if there's somebody with him when he purchased the gun, and kind of flesh out any details of that to determine if he indeed was the one that got the gun and he was the one who basically used the firearm.
Look, it's really, really sad. You have this young man who had such promise, right? I mean, he joined OpenAI in November of 2020 after graduating from UC Berkeley. His mom sang at a vigil that, quote, he was a prodigy. We knew he had excellent motor skills when he was 2.5 months. At 13 months old, he showed he was not ordinary by picking up all the alphabet. Less than 2 years old, he could recognize words. This is a guy who won a major programming competition in high school, the Platinum Division of the USA Computing Olympiad. He worked at Quora as a software engineer. He won $100,000 in 2018 by earning 7th place in an algorithm competition. And he excelled at OpenAI. Co-founder John Schulman, he'd think through the details of things carefully and rigorously, and he also had a slight contrarian streak that made him allergic to groupthink and eager to find where the consensus was wrong. Just a really sad case. We'll keep an eye on it. Colin Schmidt, thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll see you next time.